The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 marked a pivotal moment in history. The Cold War was over. Democracy, it seemed, had triumphed. A wave of optimism swept across the globe, particularly in the developing world. Countries in Latin America, Africa and Asia, long under the grip of authoritarian regimes, embarked on transitions towards democracy. The allure of free and fair elections, basic human rights and a government accountable to its people proved irresistible. The initial years after the Cold War witnessed a surge in democratization. Many countries held their first multi-party elections. New constitutions enshrining democratic principles were drafted and ratified. There was a palpable sense of hope that a new era marked by freedom and self-determination had dawned. This period, often referred to as the third wave of democratization, seemed to herald a future where democracy would become the norm rather than the exception. However, as the dust settled, a more complex reality began to emerge. The transition to democracy proved to be a far more arduous and intricate process than initially anticipated. While many countries successfully implemented the outward forms of democracy, such as holding elections, the underlying substance often lagged behind. The journey from authoritarianism to genuine democracy was fraught with challenges, both internal and external. The euphoria of the post-Cold War era gradually gave way to a more sobering recognition of the complexities involved in building and sustaining democratic institutions. The path to democracy, it became evident, was not linear or inevitable. It required constant vigilance, unwavering commitment, and a willingness to confront and overcome the multitude of obstacles that inevitably arose. The word democracy is often used loosely, without a clear understanding of its multifaceted nature. At its core, democracy is not simply about holding elections. It is about creating a system of governance where power resides with the people and is exercised through their elected representatives. However, genuine democracy goes beyond this basic framework. It encompasses a set of values, principles, and practices that are essential for its effective functioning. One crucial distinction is between electoral democracy and liberal democracy. Electoral democracy, as the name suggests, focuses primarily on the electoral process. It guarantees the right to vote and participate in elections. However, it may lack other essential features of a truly democratic society. Liberal democracy, on the other hand, encompasses a broader set of rights and freedoms. In a liberal democracy, citizens enjoy not only the right to vote, but also fundamental rights such as freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of the press, and freedom of religion. It ensures an independent judiciary, the rule of law, and protection from arbitrary state power. In essence, a liberal democracy safeguards individual liberty alongside free and fair elections. It recognizes that true democracy thrives when citizens are not only voters, but also active participants in shaping their own destiny. The distinction between electoral and liberal democracy is crucial for understanding the state of democracy in the world today. While many countries have adopted the formal mechanisms of electoral democracy, they often fall short of guaranteeing the full spectrum of rights and freedoms that characterize a truly liberal democratic order. The gap between electoral and liberal democracy is evident in many parts of the world. Several countries hold regular elections but fail to uphold the principles of a free and open society. These electoral authoritarian regimes often maintain a facade of democracy while suppressing dissent, curtailing press freedom, and manipulating the electoral process to maintain power. Russia under Vladimir Putin exemplifies this trend. While Russia holds elections, the Kremlin exerts tight control over the media, harasses and imprisons political opponents, and undermines the independence of the judiciary. The outcome is a system that resembles democracy in form but not in substance. Similarly, in Turkey, under Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the government has increasingly cracked down on dissent, jailed journalists, and eroded the rule of law, even though elections continue to be held. The phenomenon of illiberal democracy is not confined to any particular region. In Venezuela, once a thriving democracy, Hugo Chávez's socialist government gradually eroded democratic institutions, culminating in the rise of Nicolás Maduro, who has overseen an economic collapse and a humanitarian crisis. In Hungary, Prime Minister Viktor Orban has consolidated his power by undermining the independence of the judiciary, curbing press freedom and weakening checks and balances on his authority. These examples illustrate the fragility of democracy and the ease with which its principles can be eroded, even in countries with a history of democratic governance. The rise of illiberal democracy poses a significant challenge to the global advance of freedom and human rights. It highlights the need for constant vigilance and a commitment to defending democratic values not only in countries transitioning to democracy but also in established democracies facing internal threats to their democratic foundations. The state of democracy worldwide is often assessed using various indices and rankings compiled by international organizations and research institutions. These indices typically employ a range of indicators to measure the level of democracy in a given country. These indicators often include factors such as the fairness and freeness of elections, the level of civil liberties, the functioning of government, political participation, and political culture. According to the Economist Intelligence Unit's Democracy Index 2024, democracy is experiencing a global decline. The index, which covers 167 countries, found that only 45% of the world's population currently lives in a democracy. This represents a significant drop from previous years and highlights the worrying trend of democratic backsliding. Furthermore, the index categorized only 48 countries as full democracies, indicating that the majority of the world's population lives in countries with significant democratic deficits. While the overall picture is concerning, there are regional variations and some positive developments in some parts of the world, such as parts of Latin America and Eastern Europe. Democracy has made notable progress, with countries strengthening their democratic institutions and consolidating democratic norms. However, other regions, such as Sub-Saharan Africa and parts of Asia, continue to face significant challenges in establishing and maintaining democratic governance. The reasons for the decline in global democracy are complex and multifaceted. Factors such as rising authoritarianism, the spread of misinformation and disinformation, economic inequality, political polarization, and the erosion of trust in institutions all contribute to this worrying trend. Addressing these challenges is crucial for reversing the decline of democracy and ensuring a future where freedom and self-governance prevail.